Welcome to a series I like to call Disowned Dad, or reasons why I disowned my dad in the first place or went no contact with him. Not that I need a list of reasons to go no contact with my dad or have a reason, but I decided to compile a list anyways. So this is my tier list. We have a variety of A to D. Actually, it's more of we have one of each from A to D. And this is more of to get you guys acclimated to what is to come. Right now we're kind of just going over the beginning things that kind of happened throughout my contact with my dad. That way you guys have a good insight of what I was going through, what I was processing. As you can already tell, there's religious, dealing with exes, there's the weird aspect of the wife and daughter mix up, and then of course there's the gaslighting. Today's episode, it is anger issues, which is another broad spectrum similar to the gaslighting episode, but I'm gonna kind of break it down from like what I feel is less problematic to most problematic and just an overall thing. So it's not just having the anger issues, but how he dealt with them. If you didn't already know, I go over this every single episode. In 2017, I graduated high school, moved in from New Mexico to Texas where my dad lived. Then for about 2 years, I lived there, and then all of a sudden, he wanted to move to Georgia, and a lot of things happened, and I ended up moving with him to Georgia. Became homeless with him during peak COVID times. There's a lot of in between, which we will get into the nitty gritty of the details of that. Today's episode is a little bit touchy, a little bit of a trigger warning. There is mention of DV, just in case that is a trigger. You guys can go ahead and skip this episode. Just so you know, from here on out, it does get pretty graphic. The reason why I even started doing this series is for myself, so that I can process my own trauma and understanding what issues I had buried deep down and unearth them. And if you're here for the story, if you're here for the healing journey, by all means, sit down, grab a cup, let's get into this. This is episode 5, anger issues. What seems kind of obvious is there was obviously some yelling. Anytime he would get angry, he would raise his voice at me. It did start turning into more of a screaming match in most cases. Turned into verbal abuse. He would, at this point, when in his anger, he would unearth things that I thought that we had moved past as like a relationship between daughter and dad. But as he would get angry, I soon realized that that's not the case, and he would throw it at me in most cases. The other alarming thing is that it wasn't just me that he would do this to. So it wasn't just behind closed doors anytime we were going to the grocery store or dealing with anybody outside, really, that wasn't church related. He would get angry at what felt like the smallest things or minor inconveniences that built up, and he would take it out on them. So obviously, if you're working retail, my dad was probably the worst nightmare to deal with, and I always felt like I was diffusing bombs while handling other staff, like giving them side glances of like, sorry. I would like to say he's not always like this, but he really is. Felt like I couldn't really go out in many places with him without having that weird feeling of, is this going to turn into a screaming match against somebody else? Is somebody going to trigger him and he's going to end up yelling at somebody because his food is too cold, or that it wasn't the right thing? And it's just like all these little things, and all of a sudden he's gonna blow up. It didn't always happen, mind you. It never is consistent. It's just like you're walking on eggshells hoping that you're not gonna end up stepping on a bomb. Smaller things, but they add up. It's a small issue. They acclimate you to the smaller issues until it's a bigger issue, but you've already gotten so used to them being smaller issues that when it does become a bigger issue, you don't really know how to handle it, and you're like, is this normal? I feel like we've been through this so many times that it's got to be normal. Like this, everybody's got to must be dealing with this, and this is a normal amount of rage, right? It's usually worse at home, so it can't be that bad. Another thing too is that as I spent more time with him, in the beginning, I was very open with how I felt. I was really glad that we had some communication between each other, that I can confide in with another parent or an adult and tell him what I disliked while being an adult, things that I didn't really like while living with my mom, or things that I had dealt with overall, whether relationship wise or anything to that degree. And he would pick it apart. In fits of anger, he would use it against me. Another thing is that I felt like I couldn't really express how happy I was or proud I was about getting a new job or getting into school. It started off with school and then turned into getting a job. We'll also go over, there's some other issues with that too. But also like being proud that I was starting a business in the first place. Maybe I didn't like my business partner and how it began, but the whole process of starting my business and doing something that I loved at the time, it just felt like I couldn't be proud of myself with whatever I did. He would really diminish it.
I want to note that in the beginning, he was supportive. Like, he would tell me, oh yeah, that's good. But then later on, he would say, like, it's a good start. There's always room for improvement. I just didn't feel like anything I did was good enough, or it was always going to be compared to what he did in high school, because he graduated early. He was forced to graduate early in high school, and he was amazing in band and all these other achievements that he had done before graduating high school, and I always felt like I was being compared to himself while he was in school and everything that he was able to achieve at that time when I was doing multiple things.
It wasn't like so obvious that he was putting me down. It's just that it didn't feel like he was as excited. And then later on, as I became less excited from like my birthday one year, he wanted me to be really excited for it, and I could tell that he wanted me to be excited for something only so that he could shut me down later or possibly use it against me. So it was always like a struggle of I can't show that I'm happy about something because he's gonna end up using it against me or ruining it for me. Now getting into the more physical things, so before it was more like a verbal assault and mental manipulation sort of dealio, but at one point he would get so angry that he couldn't hold back, and he got so mad that he punched a wall. I don't know if this happened more than once. I don't think it should have happened at all, honestly. After this had happened, I started flinching in certain instances, and anytime I would flinch, he would ask me, "Why are you flinching? I've never hurt you. Like, I'd never hurt you. Why do you have a reason to flinch? That doesn't make sense." And sometimes he would say it in a joking way, and I didn't really appreciate that. Because when I was even in high school, there was a teacher, and this like stuck with me, that it only takes one time, right? It only takes one instance. You can go from 0 to 100 in an instance, and it could be life-threatening. So it only takes one time. So the fact that it's already turning into wall punching, it was a little bit out of my comfort zone. The yelling was out of my comfort zone, but this was pushing it, The fact that it was starting to become violent, even though it wasn't directed at me, it was in my surroundings. Imagine if he had thrown a ceramic and it shattered, or even glass that shattered and hurt me. Like, it could have been any one of those things, but instead he decided to punch a wall and hurt himself. I'm glad he decided to hurt himself and not me, but at the same time, where is that punch going to land the next time? This is all things that I'm calculating in my head to make sure that it's never going to happen. Be prepared for what could happen before it actually happens. That was my mindset while dealing with my dad, because eventually it almost felt like it was going to get to that point. I Mind you, these things don't happen day to day. They're not consistent. They almost feel random, but there is a certain pattern to them where you feel like you're in a safe place and you can let down a little bit of your wall, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're yelling, there's fighting, there's something, and you're on fight or flight or fawn. And it's just really overwhelming. It's a really like back and forth and tiring. So once you feel like you got used to it, it just goes right back and you're pulled into it once again. And you don't know if you can continue doing that for however long. I was losing it. I was losing my spark. I was losing myself of who I was. And again, it went from wall punching to throwing things against the wall. Because of course it did. Of course it proceeded from hurting himself to then throwing objects near me or like at a wall. And the feeling that I got is just like that he wanted to throw it and he wanted to direct it at me. And at certain points, I felt like I was always like watching his eyes and seeing where he was going to throw this stuff or where he was going to punch the wall. And to me, it always felt like he had considered doing it towards me, but then he stopped himself. And it just takes that one instance, like I said before, that one thought that if he just doesn't stop himself, that I end up being the target. And I never wanted to be the target. It got so bad that at certain points when he was arguing with other staff or other people, that I was glad that it wasn't me. I was glad that I was not on the receiving end, and I felt like I couldn't stop it either. Because I had gone through these back and forths of yelling at him to prevent things from happening, telling him I didn't like this so that it wouldn't happen again, but it would just keep happening. And at a certain point, it wears you down and you're like, well, it's not going to go anywhere because we've already had this argument 100 times. And having 100 more isn't going to fix anything. It wears you out so much that you're just happy that it's not happening to you when he starts doing it to somebody else. And I want you to remember this. Remember that. Because that is a feeling that I had, and it does come into play, I think, in the next episode, I believe, or even the one after. I never wanted to consider myself a victim or to that effect, because I always felt like I was a strong person and that I could always stand up for myself. But he had worn me out so much that I couldn't really stand up for myself anymore, and I'd have to pick and choose my battles because otherwise I felt like I was just battling every day, every moment, every second. For those that have not gone through DV, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I want to clarify that. But if you haven't gone through it, it's really hard to get into the mindset of somebody who has, because you mostly see it from the outside perspective, and really you have to see it from the mental fatigue of everything that's going on, because it's not just a physical warfare, it's also a mental one. There's a lot of evidence of everything that I'm saying in the beginning of these videos, of the anger issues, the gaslighting, the wife versus daughter. All of these you're gonna see aspects of in future videos. So I just want you to like keep these earlier videos in mind before we get into like the main storyline of what is happening. And yeah, I'm putting these in a tier list so that it makes it a little bit more fun, at least for me, because it's still processing trauma, no matter how I want to see it. Maybe I don't want to see myself as a victim, but at the same time, I can't deny that this has affected me in my life. Still not fully concluded, because every year it's like war flashbacks of everything I'd gone through, and I can just hear my dad saying, it wasn't that bad. You're overreacting. It wasn't that bad. Oh, trust me. By breaking this down, you'll see just how bad it was, and I was trying to convince myself all these years that it wasn't that bad. Just move on. Wasn't that bad. Just move on. Why are you acting like this? Wasn't that bad. You didn't get hurt, you don't have scars, there's like nothing holding you back physically, so why are you having issues? And I'm here to tell you, there are reasons. There is gonna be a lot of things that I cannot actively say on YouTube without it being like flagged or like censored or having to censor it. Because as much as I want to be raw and just tell you everything for what it is without any censorship, I do want this to be out there because I want those that have gone through something similar that I have, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a better life after. This wasn't supposed to be like an inspiration type of video, but I just want people to know after watching my videos that I did go through it. A lot of people out there are going through it as well, or they did, and maybe you're also going through your own healing journey. And that's why there's a comment section. If you want to vent it, tell me your story, feel free in the comments. If you have any questions, also feel free to ask them in the questions. I do not mind in the slightest. Like I said before, I've processed this mentally as much as I could on the logical level. And right now I'm processing everything on an emotional and physical level. So that's what these videos really are. This is like the physical aspect of putting it on paper and thinking it out and remembering, unfortunately, the emotions that kind of came behind it, what I was thinking at the time, what I had felt at the time, all of it coming together instead of just the logical reasoning of why I should get over it, you know? And that concludes episode 5, anger issues. So let's put this on a tier list. So this is our current tier list, as you saw in the beginning of the video, and we're gonna go ahead and put this one as a D. Now, on reflection, because I made this PowerPoint a while ago, and this tier list a while ago, that initially the anger felt lower tier, like a D. But on reflection of the actual DV of it all, I actually think it's probably closer to a B or a C. Just, I will not be changing it later, but just kind of put that mental note that I do actually see this a bit higher than a D tier, just due to the DV aspects. When I made this list, it was more of like, yeah, the yelling isn't so bad. Like, he didn't hurt me type of thing, so it can't be that bad. Like, I really minimized it myself. Like, I did that work for him, in all honesty. But really, it's bad. Any form of DV, whether it's physical or mental, it's bad. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as you can in terms of trauma dumping. But thank you guys for watching, and I hope you can join me for episode 6. This is a series on my YouTube channel. I have it as a playlist, so if you ever want to just like come back or whatever, maybe wait a few weeks or months, because this is gonna be a really long series, feel free to just kind of pop in, watch the playlist, rewatch it, I don't care. I will be changing my schedule from doing these every week to every other week, just because I didn't realize how much it took to process all of this. Like, I think in my head I was like, oh, this should be easy, I already processed this, so all I have to do is just talk about it. But really, since I'm processing the emotional aspect of all of this, it's been a bit of a longer journey. We're gonna do these every other week. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys later. Bye bye.